afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon,
Good
beta.
afternoon,
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, dear. Good afternoon.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, beta. Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, beta. Good evening. I hope I'm audible to every one of you.
Good evening, sir.
You?
Yes, sir, you're
Yes,
audible.
sir, you are audible.
Good evening, beta. Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, beta. Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, dear. Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, beta. So the first thing that I would like to ask from you guys is, in one of the previous lectures we talked about cascading dropdowns. Okay, how many of you were not able to understand the concept or code of that cascading dropdown? First of all, tell me that.
Ma'am, I was not there. Sir, I was not there in the
Naman, you
last
were not
class
there.
only.
Okay. Is there anyone else except Naman who was not there in the last class or who was not able to understand the code
Sir.
which we made use
Sir,
of?
I
I was
wasn't
not
able
able-
to understand
Sir,
that.
sir, on
I am
that
not
day,
able
sir,
to
I had,
understand.
sir, on
Sir,
that day, I had very
One by
much
one, one by
network
one.
issues. So,
Okay,
sir,
I got
on
it.
that
I got
day
it, Krishna.
on which you
I got it.
explained.
I got your point, Krishna. No worries. So we are going to discuss that thing first. And after that, we are going to come on that two-way communication system. Fine. I am going to share my laptop screen now with you guys. And I would like all of you to just put yourself on mute so that my part can be, I can explain my part in a good way to you, to every one of you.
Sir, I was absent in the timer class.
I will not be able to help you in that case. You're really sorry. Okay, you can, let's do one thing. Give me a call on my number. Okay, after this class, we'll have a discussion on the same. Just give me a short moment. Welcome, dear. I am sharing my screen now. Okay, so where is that app? My project. All of you, please put yourself on mute. I'm able to hear some noises from the background. I think this was the app, and I taught this to you guys on 12th of this month. I think this is the one, right? Now let's do one thing. Let's come on this drop down list screen. Okay, and where is the code which we made use of for this coding this the components which are there on this screen? This is the one. Okay. So after where is that? Where is this image 13? It is there on this screen 8. So what the user will do when he will come on this app for the first time, this is a screen he's going to come across. Now he has to select his image from through this profile pic option. And here he is going to enter his name, his country name, state, and then city name. And when he will hit the submit button, automatically what is going to happen? He's going to get redirected on this screen 8. Now there is a button, there is an image button which I have defined on this screen 8. The name of that button is image 13. Okay, its ID is also getting reflected over here, as you can, if you'll notice, the ID of the image button is also getting reflected. It is image 13. Okay, now when the user will click on this image 13, what is going to happen? Set screen drop down list. So he is going to get redirected on this screen, the name of which is drop down list. And we are going to fetch the records. This read records block I have made use of in order to read the records from the users table, which is going to get created here on the data browser. Now here in this users table, we have everything, whatever the user has entered on this screen, that is screen one while creating his profile. We have got everything over here. So we have got his photo, we have got his name, okay, the country name, the state name, the city name, everything is getting reflected over here and everything is going to get saved over here in this table. Now, when the user will come on this drop down list screen, so read records, the records are going to get fetched up from this users table. And there is a list item, there is a list which we have created over here. This is a list variable. What is a list? It's a type of a collection where you can store more than one items. Okay, so generally we make use of this list in the javascript on a javascript platform. If we want to pull more than one items at the same time. So because it can be possible that 2 or 3 persons who have got their profiles registered on this platform, they belong to different countries. So they will be, suppose there are 3 persons and all 3 of them belongs to 3 different countries. So in total, there are 3 items which we need to pull for this drop down named country, right? So in order to do that, we defined a list item over here. Okay, this is a code with which you can do that. Now there is a for loop here. As you already know, that this for loops comes with read record block. So we don't have to make any changes in this. Now there is a property called append item which we guys have made use of in order to append all the items, the names of all the countries which are going to get reflected or which are going to get saved inside this column, in this column country. So for fetching all the items, we have made use of this code over here. Fine. Now what this code is going to do, this is going to pull the records from the country column. Suppose there are 3 countries, let's say India, Canada, Africa. So the names of all the 3 countries are going to get pulled up by this records I.country code, and all the 3 items are going to get appended to this items list. It is a list, it is a collection. So append means we are adding something. Okay, so all the 3 items are going to get appended to this list. And once the compiler is done with appending the names of all the 3 countries in the form of items in this list items, in the next part, what it is going to do, it is going to set the property of this drop down in such a way that all the items which are there inside this items list, they should get reflected as an options for this drop down. So we have made use of this property options for doing the same. So this is how we have coded for we have defined the code for this drop down. Fine. Now when the user will click this drop down too, so this is an on event block that I have made use of. Well, let's do one thing. Let me just remove this
Hello?
whole. Yes, Naman, are you saying something
Hello?
here? Hello, who's this?
पापा मैं क्लास अटेंड कर रहा हूँ.
Naman, can you please put yourself on mute here? Your voice is coming. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to remove these 2 codes from here. Let's define the code for these 2 drop downs again. Okay, and here I go. Now let's see once when you'll run this app now. Just a second. Let's come on this coding part, and here I'm going to, let's come on this designing part, and let's make this drop down a default screen. Fine, because we need to code for these two components which are present over here. So I'm making this as a default screen. So what is going to happen when I will run this app? So this is a screen which I'm going to come across for the first time. Okay, now, okay, I will not be able to see, I'm not able to see the country names over here. Can anyone tell me why am I not able to fetch the name of the countries from this data table?
Because we can click the image 13 to see the drop down list.
Absolutely correct. Because we need to click on this image 13 first in order to fetch, in order to read the records from the users table inside this drop down one. So what we are going to do? No, beta, the data is already there. See, there is a table with name
Excuse me, sir.
users.
Sir, can't we, sir, like there are many countries, so sir, can't we make table without any URL, just only for names of the countries and then set in the drop down?
Beta, Krishna, please don't confuse any of us here. You are confusing every one of us. See, we are for what we are trying to do now, what we are trying to do here, we are trying to understand the coding for these drop downs, right? Okay, so let's focus on this part first. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to make this screen 8 a default screen. This is a default screen now. Now, when you will run this app, when you will hit this run button in order to run this code, and when you'll hit this image button, you will be able to see the names of all the countries getting reflected over here, right? Now if I'll select India, and if I will click on this drop down to, I would like to see the names of all the states should get reflected in this drop down too. So how can we do that? How can we connect this drop down 2 with this drop down 1? That's what we need to understand now. So in order to do that, the first thing that is required is an on event block. Okay, and I'm defining it over here. This is the on event block for image 13, and this one I'm going to define for this drop down 2. Let's change it to drop down 2, and when the user will click on this drop down 2, we would like to fetch the records from the users table again. Okay, so this is the block which we can make use of, and the name of the table is users. Now we want to fetch the records for for this country which the user is going to select in this drop down one. So how can we define a condition for that thing? So we can make use of a space that is there, a small space that is there in between these two curly brackets for defining such kind of condition. So let's make use of, what is the name of the column in which all the names of the countries are getting saved? It is country, right? So how can we check the country name? By writing the name of the column over here, then placing a colon. And after that, we need to fetch the name of the country which the user is going to select from this drop down. So in order to do that, we need to make use of this get text block and put it over here. And this thing I need to replace it with drop down 1. Okay, now the user will be able to pull the records which are concerned, or which you can say again which are related to this country which the user will select in this drop down 1. Now we can remove, we can put a code over here. Better just hold on for a moment. Because there can be more than one states. Okay, so again we need to make use of a list variable. Let's make use of this list variable named states for doing the same. And here we need to append the items in this states list, the way we appended the names of all the countries to this items list variable. In the same way we are going to append the names of all the states in this states collection also. So for doing the same, we need to make use of append item property, and then we need to write down the name of the collection in which we want to store all the items. And how can we fetch the records of the states by writing, what is the name of the column in which the names of states are getting saved? It is state. S is in
State.
capital. So we need to replace this thing with state. Okay, now all the names of all the states are going to get appended to this states list collection. Okay, to this states list. How can I get all the names of the states reflected in this drop down? So for
You
doing the
can use
same,
set
we
property.
that is absolutely right. We need to make use of this set property block. And what is the idea of this drop down? It is drop down 2. So let's
Drop down to.
select drop down 2 from here. And instead
And
of
in
this
the
width,
second
we
one,
need to
it's
select.
options.
Beta, please put yourself on mute. Please put yourself on mute. And then,
Sir, you have put a W in the drop down. Between the drop and down, you have put
okay,
a W.
now it is fine. Okay, so that's how we can fetch the names of all the states which are related to this country the user is going to select in this drop down one. Now, if you want to find out the names of the cities which are related to the states which the user is going to select from this drop down to, how can you do that? Again, we can define an uneven block. Okay, again we need to define an uneven block. Now in this ID, we need to select what is the ID of this drop down. It is drop down 3. Drop down 3. Okay, so when the user will click on this drop down 3, we need to fetch the records again from the user's table. And the condition now that I need to define over here is the state's name against those city names should match with the one the user has selected in this drop down to, right? So for doing the same, we can copy this code from here and put it over here. Now, instead of this country, we would like the name of this, we would like to match the name of the state. So we can make the required changes over here. Now let's do the same thing which we have done here for this state. So I'm copying this whole code from here and I'm going to paste it over here. Fine. Now let's create a list first for fetching the names of the cities. So I'm creating this ID city. Okay, and let's append the names of all the cities to this list item. And what is the name of the column in which the names of all the cities are getting saved? It is city, right? So we can copy this from here and we can come on the coding part and replace this state with city. Fine. Now here in this set property, we are setting the property of drop down 3. So let's replace it with drop down 3. And here we need to replace this states with this city collection. Okay, so that's how we can do it. Now let's check whether the code is working fine or not. So let's run this application and hit this image button. So the country names are coming over here. Let's select this India. So we are getting an error over here. Why? The get text ID parameter refers to an ID drop down one which does not exist. Okay, I think I have made a mistake in the code. Okay, it should be drop down, right? The spelling was not correct. This should be drop down. Yeah, now it is fine. Let's run this app one more time and check out whether it is going to give us the desired output or not. So let's select India from here. Let's see what are we going to get if we'll hit this drop down. So see, the names of all the states are also coming. Let's select Rajasthan. Now let's see whether the cities names are coming or not. See, the name of the cities are also coming. Okay, so that's how you can make a cascading drop down list. Is this thing clear to every one of you now? I am with you guys.
Sir,
I think I've already shared the link of this app with you guys, right?
Yes, sir, you said.
Now let's come on
yes.
that. All of you, please put yourself on mute. I am Now let's discuss that teacher student app we designed in the previous lecture. Where is that?
So will you
This is
share
the one.
the link?
I think I've already shared this link with you guys earlier on the
So, but
same link.
someone had reported
Actually, you have
against the
shared
app,
the
so we
link
could
of
not see.
project.
No problem. Just a second. Let me share the link of this project. Where is that cascading menu project? This is the one. I'm going to share it with you one more time. No problem. After this lecture, can I do that? Because it is going to take some time. Okay. I'm going to share the links of both the apps with you guys. Don't worry about that. Fine. Now let's come on this thing and just give me a short moment. Let me remove the screens which are not required. Screen 2 is not required. Then screen 3 is also not required. This screen 4 is also not required. Then screen 1 is required. Sign in screen. This is a student screen where the student is going to receive the question. Okay, fine. Now let's come on this coding part and let's start coding for this screen, for this sign in screen first. So there are two components which are there. So there are three components which I have defined on this screen. The name of the first one is sign in user. The name of the second one is sign in password. And the name of this button is sign in. So now the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to define an on event block for this sign in button. So for the same, let's make use of this on event block. And when the user will hit this sign in, the idea of this button is sign in. Let's select sign in from here. Okay, when the user will hit this sign in button, if the username which he has entered here is teacher and the password is also teacher, I would like him to get redirected on this teacher screen. So for doing that, what I can do, I can make use of this if loop and I can put it over here. Okay, and let's convert it back into text-based coding. Now we need to fetch the text, we need to fetch the input which the user is going to make here in these two components. So in order to fetch the entry the user is going to do, we can make use of this get text block. Where is that? This is the one. Let's put it over here. The ID of this component is sign in user. So we can copy the ID of this component from this properties panel of this design part, and we can replace this ID like this. If it is equal to teacher, okay, and the password is also equal to teacher. Now there are two conditions which we need to check. So for that we need to place this add logical operator, right? And we need to place it inside this if loop. Not like this. We need to copy this whole code and we are going to use the same code for this second component also. Now the idea of the second component is sign in password. Okay. Now if the password is also equal to teacher, I would like the user to get redirected on this teacher screen. Okay, so that's how I can do it. The spelling of this teacher is not correct. Huh? Let me make the required changes over here. Fine. And besides
Sir,
that,
it
I
is
would
like
like
the
to
one we did in the first app.
absolutely right. But we are making use of the coding that we learned in the first class to make this two-way communication system. Okay, let's select this one. Okay, and in case else if else sorry, not else. Let's do one thing. Let's copy this whole code and put it over here. If this sign in user is equals to student, fine, and this one is the password is also equal to student, then the user should get redirected on which screen? He should get redirected on this student screen. Absolutely correct. Okay, now let's see whether this code is working fine or not. So for that, we are going to hit this share button and let's copy this code from here and run this on two different tabs. Just want to check whether the code that we have
Share
defined.
this project link also.
Of course, dear. I'm going to share each and everything, whatever we are going to make in these online classes. This project has been reported. Acha, what has happened?
Sir, who has reported?
I think there is some issue with this link, dear. No problem. No problem. Just give me a short moment.
Sir, when we view project, sir, there is some options for reporting the project as an inappropriate and something something. So, sir, I think someone is.
I also think so, dear. No problem. Let's remix this one. Okay, and let's copy this whole code that we have defined over here and put it inside this sign in. Then I think we have got all the screens over here, the required screens. So student screen is there, teacher screen is also there. Fine. This is also going to, where is that sign in screen? This is the one. Fine. Now the ID, the IDs are also matching. Okay, so I'm closing this one. Let's run this one and check out whether the code we have defined, is it good to go or not. So if the user will enter teacher, and T should be in capital in both the fields, username as well as password. Okay, so when he'll hit this login button, he's getting redirected on this teacher screen. Let's see whether the student is also able to access the student screen or not. Okay, so the code that we have defined, it is working perfectly fine. Now let's come on this teacher screen. Now here there is a board where the teacher is going to write down the answers. Now see, if you're creating a two-way communication system, whatever messages this user is going to send, you need to save it first in a table. Okay, so that you can pull the records from that table on the panel of that person who want to fetch the question or who want to see the information which this person has created. So for doing the same, what we need to do, we need to define an on-event block, and you can see there is a button over here. What is the idea of this button? The idea is send. So we can replace this with send. Okay, and now because we want a table to get created inside which we would like the question which the teacher is going to write down over here on this board should get saved. So for doing the same, we need to come on this data part, and then we need to come on this create record option. Okay, let's put it over here inside this on event block, and I'm renaming this table to questions or questions. Fine. So whatever question the teacher is going to give to the students, it should first get saved in this table named questions, and there is a column named question which I am defining. Okay, and in this column, this question is going to get saved. How can we fetch the question? Using this get text block, we can fetch the question. The teacher is going to write down over here. So get text, what is the ID of this component? It is question. Okay, so this is how you can create a table in which the question is going to get saved in a column named question. Fine. Now, how can we make this student see the question which is there inside this table, or you can say which the teacher has given to him for to attempt. So for doing that, again we can put an uneven block. Okay, and there is a label box that I have made use of here, and the name of that label box is get question. So I'm going to replace this ID with the ID of this label box like this. And when the user will hit this label box, I would like this question to get visible on this board. Okay, so there is only one component which is present on this board, and that is this label box. So what we can do, we can set the text for this label box equal to the text of the question which the teacher has given. How can we do that? In order to
Sir, we
fetch
can use
the,
static.
first of all, we need to read the records, not here. We need to fetch the records from this table questions, right? So for doing the same, we can make use of this read records block. And in order to set the text of this label equal to the questions text, we can make use of this set text property. The ID of this component is get question. Let's convert it. Let's replace it with get question and copy. I'm copying this one and I'm putting it over here. What is the name of the column in which the questions are getting saved? The name of the column is question.
Question.
Okay, so I'm putting it over here. Let's remove this whole code. Okay, so that's how the question will be visible to this student. Now here he can enter his name, and here he can write down the answer and submit his answer. So once he is done with making the required entries, and when he'll click on this submit button, again, in order to receive the answer which the student has given for the question which he has received from this teacher, again we need a table from where we can fetch the details on this teacher's panel. So what we are going to do, we are going to again make use of an uneven block. Okay, and this time this uneven block that we are making use of, we are going to define it for this submit result button. Idea of the submit result button is submit. Instead of the submit results, let's make it submit answer. Okay, I think that will look good. Submit answer. Yeah. So when the student will click on the submit button, I would like to get a table like structure to get created on the data browser. Okay, and answer. Okay, this is the name which I am giving to the table, which should get created when the student will hit the submit button. And inside this table, there are 1, 2, 3. There are 3 things which I would like to get saved. One is the name of the student. Second thing is the question. Okay, and the third thing is, what is the third thing? It is answer. Fine, so that's how you can define the names of different columns you would like to have in a particular table. Now let's fetch the
Your answer spelling is wrong.
answer spelling is wrong. Okay, it should be like this one. Yeah, that is fine. So let's fetch the details for this name component. For doing the same, we need to make use of get text block, and we can put it over here. Again, what is the ID of this component where the user is going to enter his name? It is student name, right? So let's come on the designing part and copy the ID from here. In case the lecture gets over in between, we are going to continue with this app in the next lecture. Fine. What is the ID of that component in which the user is going to enter the answer of the question? It is, let's check the ID, it is answer. So I'm going to replace, okay, it is answer. No? So I need to place it here, right? And similarly, from where can we get the question? Get question. From here we can get the question. Okay, so fine. Now let's run this app and check out whether we will be able to get the desired output or not. So right now there is no table on this browser. Fine, I am running this app on 2 different tabs. And this is a browser. Fine. Now the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to log in into this app using the teacher's login credentials. As a teacher, I'm going to log in into this app. So for doing the same, we need to enter what has happened. Yeah, we need to enter teacher over here and teacher in this password field too. Let's log in. Okay, let's write down a question over here. What is the full form of WHO? Okay, and let's now hit this send button and see whether a table with name questions will get created on the data browser or not. Now let's come on this data browser. See, a table with name questions has got created, and inside this, the question which I placed on this board is getting reflected. Okay, now let's come on the student panel. So for accessing that question on this student panel, what I need to do? I need to click on this label box, right? Let's click on this label box and see whether we'll be able to fetch the question or not. See, the question is getting reflected over here. Okay, now let's come here. Let's enter, I'm entering my name for now. And what is the full form of WHO? Who's going to tell me?
World
World Health
Health
Organization.
Organization.
Okay, it is World Health Organization. Okay, let's now submit the result. Now, when you'll come on this browser, you'll be able to see one more table on this data browser. Now here you can see all the information which the user has entered on this students panel. The name is also getting reflected, question is also there, and answer is also there. In the next lecture, what we are going to do, we are going to code this app in such a way that we can get this answer of this question reflected on this teacher's panel. Fine. For now, I am ending this lecture and I'm going to share the link of both the apps with you guys on your WhatsApp number. Thank you very much for listening to me quietly and attentively. God bless you and have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye, sir.
Bye,
Bye,
Vidya.
sir.
Bye, sir.
Bye.